Thank you, Per, because for your talk, I don't have to say much more, but on the other way, I'm on the farmer side, and maybe some of you would think, where is he talking about? So it's my pleasure to be here and to talk to you on connected supply chains from farm to fork. Let's start my talk, and afterwards we will have some questions. Something about me. I made one mistake in my life. That's 40 years ago, when I started as an agricultural engineer working in ICT. And my first PC has a hard disk of 10 megabytes. Some of you know that. And it couldn't have one picture of your cell phone now on it. So I'm 40 years working on the digital transformation of this industry. And that's what I really like. That's my life. And that's what I work for. And this is me. My favorite food is pineapple. And I'm a tech guy. So a lot of my industry guys say, Harry, you are too techy for us. But I like the combination of the industry and technology. So today I'm here talking to you as the chairman of the foundation Fresh Upstream, which is the GS1 Netherlands industry program for agriculture and food. And we work on that already for more than, 7 years. And before that, I was founder of Fujicom. That's the program where we started with fresh produce and worked together with GS1, and that was founded in 2003. So already more than 22 years, I'm saying something about GS1 standards and adoption in our industry. So be aware, it doesn't go fast. I'm also work for a big growers cooperative, one of the biggest in the Netherlands, 800 hectares of fruity crops, the most high-tech greenhouses you can imagine, and our growers call themselves a grower, but have an average turnover of 40 million euros a grower. And they still call themselves a grower, and they have a very large digital. I'm responsible in that cooperative for development, innovation, and transition based on supply chain, based on sustainability, and based on a data-driven cooperation. So I'm not just at the GS1 side of the industry, but also have every day the opportunity to stand with my feet in the mud. Because when you work on data in supply chains, you stand with your feet in the mud. Let me start first with 2 mythbusters. First, we start with this. I was on holiday in Italy, and I went to something on the hotel, on the resort we were staying with my kids, and this guy was talking a lot, but he was talking Italian, Dutch, I don't speak Italian. But it's the same what's happening in our industry.
Domani è possibile scansionare qualcosa che sono in giro per la struttura e sulle tovagliette dei ristoranti per partecipare alla nostra survey. Che cos'è la survey? Qualcuno me lo domanda? Che cos'è la survey? Ve lo dico io, la survey è il nostro concorso a premi. Facilissimo.
Another mythbuster was one of the questions a few minutes ago. Is everywhere I come, people are giving nice presentation and telling farmers, your data is the new gold. And then I say to them, data, gold? I think it's iron. And why? Because look at the bar of iron. A bar of iron made worth $100. A real bar of iron gets into value if it's become a chip in an equipment of NXP in the Netherlands. Then it's becoming real value. So if you have data, and you do nothing with it in the supply chain, the value of your data is 0. It's nothing. Data is becoming to value by using it upstream in your supply chain. And that's very important, because otherwise it will not work. And we should stop telling farmers that data is their new gold. What the result of that is that they do nothing with their data, they want nothing with their data, and we will never get a nice cake we can bake with that data and have the profit together. That are my 2 mythbusters. So it's not about data, it's about what you do with it. Let me go on. Let me look at data in the supply chain. Today, trade is in transition, is your company prepared, was the title of this event. And I looked at this event and said, okay, what's happening in that supply chain? How is it looking with in transition? Let me talk about this. We start with business process automation. 1986, when I started, we are operating systems to make an invoice, to make some paperwork less, and then later on we start in production and process automation. Automatic valves and easy control in our factories, totally not connected with each other. Then we go into enterprise automation. I think a few of you have a discussion about ERPs and things like that. I don't talk about too much about it. You all know how easy that was, but that's what's happening in our industry. And now we are going into supply chain automation. That's your outside and your inside, your outbound and your inbound. And that's easy because you send your data to somebody at the end of your line, and then he will work with that. But ladies and gentlemen, this was all easy. Cost a lot of money, it was easy. Where we are fearing now is we are going into integration. We are going into interoperability. We are getting new kinds of what I call mation, coinmation, sensormation, robomation, all new kinds of technologies are coming into your factories and into our farms which have something to do with automation, which have to be combined and integrated in machine-to-machine connections. That's not putting something on a PDF, but that's totally something else. And I will move on with you to give you some examples. Here you have a cashless checkout. You know, the coinmation, I call it, or fintech is going cashless. Also, when I here was in Helsinki for a few days, you see stores, no more cash. We are cashless. That's happening, but there are interesting challenges. This is a cashless checkout of one of the big German retailers. I think you recognize him. The interesting is that they're not only scanning the barcode, but they also are weighing the product. And by making a combination of scanning the barcode and weighing the product, they want to prohibit that there are cheaters who take more product in. But when you go back to our fresh products, you mean you have in the barcode the weight of your cheese, the weight of your meat. Otherwise, this weigher doesn't work. That's an interesting thing. But we go into sensors. I can talk to you about this for 3 hours. I don't go it. I do that often with farmers, but there's a lot of sensors coming into our industry. And they are getting more and more easier and faster. And we can measure everything in a farm. And this data is used for sustainability. It's used for all kinds of other aspects, but also for operating the farm. But sensors are also coming into the store. Maybe you saw this one. It's a Dutch startup company where you can scan your avocado and then you know is it ripened in 3 days or in 4 days or in 1 day. It's one accumulating waste, but otherwise it's also telling the retailer what is the quality of his avocados on his shelf. Because a lot of people say, oh, I don't want the 3 days, I take the 1 day. But all those continuous measurements which are done do that. And another thing, of course, is I call it hands-free. We are going into a robotized production facility which is hands-free. Hands-free means we're getting robots everywhere. I have huge challenges with that in my packing stations, but we are getting there. We have to get out of the people in our packing facilities. We have to get out the people in our farms. We have to get out the people in our greenhouses. Robots will take over because it's a lot, but also when you do that, you can also make a digital quality check. Because a robot cannot only pack something, he can also use his sensor, say, hey guys, this is okay and not okay. There's more. Who saw this picture once before? I love it. This is the distribution center of Albert Heijn. You know him? I call them Big Blue. Yeah, in the Netherlands. And in the heart of the distribution center, you see control room. That's what Per was talking about. They need 300 or 400 attributes, digital points, to operate this DC. Otherwise, it doesn't function. If there a product is coming in the DC and the digital data points are not there, the functioning of the DC is not there. and it stops. And I don't have to tell you when the DC is stopping that you have an issue. For instance, one of the things can be that the height of your packaging is too high. And you have 14 layers, and then the robot is saying 14 layers, so let's say 12 centimeters, then it's about 1.5 meters. Then he's going into a store, into a stock place, and he puts it in there, and it was 20 centimeters more. The above box is coming down. The DC goes closed for half a day, because it has to be cleaned, and when it has to be cleaned, no one has to be allowed in the robot area in the DC. And that's what things are happening, why data quality is also being moved forward by what I call robomation. And of course, you know a lot of certifications. We got every day a new one, and I like that because, but be aware, when you look at certification, there's an interesting thing that every new certificate are 4 new questions and 3 old ones which doesn't allow, and maybe some level of what's allowed and not allowed is bringing down. So organize your certification data digital. That's a very interesting thing. And then there are nice things. I saw Per telling you a lot of the QR code. I'm looking at the QR code from a total different perspective. Because it's giving us an opportunity to tell the story of our produce. It's giving us an opportunity to tell the story to the consumer of our farms. And there are nice examples. You see a QR code in here. There are huge examples in New Zealand. Also in China, there's a great one with cherries. And also more and more storytelling is one. And I know you do a lot of dairy, so I brought this with you. I don't know if some of you know the brand Lely. Lely is the biggest supplier of milking robots to farms. And in the Netherlands, I think 80% of the companies have a milking robot. And Lely is building a milk factory connected to that robot. And by also putting the milk directly from the robot in the bottle and supply it to the local supermarket. And then they put a QR code on the bottom of the bottle, and they even can tell the consumer which the cow was, and that it was Bertha 11 who did deliver the milk today for you. And that's our amazing opportunities to look at how we can tell the story of our products, that we are doing more than mass production and other thing. And downstairs you see how that works. It's My Milk. That is the website of Lely, and then it's a digital link in it. So it are the regular codes, the GLN and the GTIN, which are used to do those things. And of course, we have IoT. IoT is bringing us more. When I go to a shelf, I see all kinds of signs, price labels. And more information is getting in that sign. Actions, sold out, not available anymore, getting out of stock. All those data is getting more and more, and IoT is one of the things which makes us need to make our data connected. And you know this one in Finland? The Dutch retail environment is a little bit getting disrupted by a company called Picnic. No brick and mortar store anymore. Only online. Buying product in Germany and sell it to Dutch consumers without asking Unilever and Coca-Cola. That's an interesting case. So the new world of online retail storing is also disrupting our industry. But online means that everything should be online and all data of the product must be available. Of course, I can talk to you about AI. I don't gonna do that because I only have 25 minutes, I believe. 15 left, so that's going very well. But AI means high quality of data. When you put AI and you add it to rubbish, you get AI with rubbish. So if you don't have the data, you'd have nothing on our AI. And that's why all big meta companies of the world are now trying to get the best data in all kinds of new regulations and things like that. But AI doesn't work on this way. And there is another thing, I call it segmentation. Ever one of you was hacked before? You know, Big Blue, Albert Heijn had a hack in the Netherlands on their retail stores. That hurts. That hurts. What's happening now is that my farmers are asked to be on NIS2. You don't know if you know the regulation, which is a European regulation. That hurts to a farmer. Because the farmer has a greenhouse with a PLC of 10 years old. And then we should tell them that it should be NIS2 ready. When he takes the power off, that PLC does nothing anymore. So that's really a challenge also for us. But let me stop with giving you examples. Let me give you another thing. Also Per told about, and you asked a few questions, also you, on EU regulations. And I see a lot in the GS1 world, and when there is an EU regulation, we are starting a project on that EU regulation. And I will say to you, stop organizing your data for EU regulations, start manage your data. Because every year you will have a new regulation. And every time the basic data for all those regulations is the same. If it's deforestry, it's the life cycle analysis. If it's new packaging regulations, 90% of the data which you use for that is the same. So please stop organize your data in organization, regulation bodies in company. We have a CSRD board and things like that, and they collect all the data. The data should be in your supply chain management. Should be part of your key business and not just in a board like that. And be aware of one thing. Tell me, what would you pay for the apple? €0.25? Euro? What would you pay for the can? €5. You know what's in it then? Caviar? Yeah. Be aware that the product we are selling is data. When the variety apple is a Tessa, that's a high-paid Dutch new variety, homegrown in the Netherlands, which is called the Netherlands Pink Lady, which has a very high attraction on the market, and the consumers are paying a lot of money for that. But if it's this, so be aware that the product you are producing is data, and that's also the data on your cans. Data is part of your marketing, is part of everything you do. Ladies and gentlemen, that's where I start. It's that it starts with identification. Because if you don't identify your product, and you identify it on a legal way, on a good way, then you have some problems. And I think, I call this the diamond of GS1, that GS1 has the identifiers to organize our industry. That's starting with the GPC. Who knows that the GPC for food and vegetables, we have 350 different GPCs. Is it eaten in a tomato, or is it a sweet pepper, or it's a leaf of somebody else, it's the pineapple and things like that. We organize in fresh produce already global. I was also 10 years in the board of IFPS. You know them from the PLUs, maybe on your checkout points. And we started with organizing the GPCs. The GPC is the combination, the product category in the shelf. Then you go to the G10. You all know the G10. I give examples on that. And then you go to the location. Where is the G10 produced? Because the G10 can be produced in different factories. So it couldn't be the same G10 or a different G10 when it's produced in another factory or is yielded on another farm, on another field, on another orchard. And of course the batch. When you slaughter chickens or cows, it's a batch. And then you go to delivery, the serial shipping and container code. Who of you is using the serial shipping of container code with his farmers? Why do you think it's used in harbors around the globe? Every container which is moving around the world has a serial shipping and container code. Why don't we do that in our industry? Tell me. I don't know. Maybe you know. Some things to take home I was asked for GS1 Finland to talk to you about. I will try to do that in the last 10 minutes we have standing over here. The first thing, Do you know the 80-20 normal rule? Normally it takes you 20% of your energy, of your effort to do something and get it to the 80% level. Often the latest 80% or 20% get there takes you 80% of your energy. When I look at information in supply chains, it's the other way around. It takes you 80% of the energy to get to a certain level of 20%. After that level is reached, then you can go to the next. What do I mean by that is that the first offer we have to make is to get somebody who is unconscious to conscious. Somebody who is unaware to aware. And a lot of CEOs in our industry are totally unaware what data standards can do for their business. And that's where it has to start. It's not going to start at your IT department. It's not going to start on your marketing department. It's going to start in your heart of your business process. And that's on high level in your company. And if you are there, then you can try to make people competent. It's very difficult, people who are unconscious, unaware, to make them competent, because they don't come to your workshop. They don't read your article. They don't go in depth with what they should do. Another thing is, start first mile thinking. I think a lot of you are producers of food, and you all look at the data set the retailers are asking for you. I call that the last mile. But when a retailer can make money off that data, can you make money off that data from your suppliers? Can you use the data of your suppliers on the same way to make your process more easier? I think you can. Let me give you a nice example. I was on the GS1 Interact in Amsterdam a few months ago, and there was a John-Mark Koffenstein of Nestlé. I think you know Nestlé. And he said some nice words. He said, upstream, that's from me to his retailers. How many retailers does Nestlé have, you think? 5,000? 10? No more than that, huh? Around. He says, 20%, less than 20% he says there, I must have a look at 100% of the products I send to my retailers have a GTIN. And he says 90% have also a GLN. That's nice. That's his outbound. That he's doing for his customer. That's nice, eh? You have nothing of that in your internal process because you do that for your customer. But then he says, my inbound. I think Nestlé has 500,000 farmers. Dairy, meat, fresh produce, maybe more. And he says, 20% of the products I get in have a GTIN. Why does a package which you get in not have a GTIN? Why don't you produce that like a GTIN? Why does an inbound product, which is in a big box, not have a GTIN? Why is a box of tomato doesn't have a GTIN when it goes into a factory? Tell me. I don't know. And I think and he says 10% of it has a GLN. So has an ID of identification of a location. I, as a supplier, Nestlé, can do something with it. That's what's happening. And that's where the challenges in fresh upstream lay. Good. And then there was told to me there were a lot of CEOs in the room. So I can ask this question. Because a lot of times when I talk to a CEO and I ask him, what do you do with your invoices? And then he says to me, Harry, that's perfect. We do that perfect. My IT department, perfect. Okay, guys, what I do then? Every big customer gets a PDF of my invoice. I say, a PDF? Yeah, a PDF. What can your customer do with a PDF of your invoice? Because it's a digital piece of paper. You cannot use it machine to machine connected. And that's where the new thinking starts. Supply chains optimization start with machine to machine connectivity. And that's why I ask you, based on that, for machine to machine connection, you should have your master data on the highest level. That's also where Per was talking about, those 200 identifiers which were used in all kinds of things. Get rubbish out of GS1 systems, we have the same sometimes, but also look in your own company. Because what you can do is try to look at your master data maturity area. And where do you stand as a company? Are you prepared? Not prepared? Are you globally optimized? I say globally optimized. That's not Finland optimized, globally optimized. And you have 3 areas to look at. Your ICT systems. Are they ready for GLN, for G10? Your standards. Do you use global standards? Or do you have your own company standards? That's nice. That works very fast. You have them for 15 years. Why should you use a GPC or something like that when you have your company standard? Why? Tell me. Yeah, the GPC is not okay for us. Why didn't you manage then to, or as GS1, to optimize that GPC for your industry group? We did that in Fresh Produce. And then the last thing is, that's even, is very slow, is the data quality. Do you have the governments in place for your master data? Do you have the governments in place for your master data quality? Did you organize that? Or is it some guy at the back door who says, in the ICT department, I need a new code, can you make that for me? Master data is key on your process. Good, ladies and gentlemen, I'll last go to the end of my presentation. For me, it all starts with location. And when you talk to me about precision growing, data science, certification, food safety, digital supply chain footprint and smart logistics, in all the location is a key issue. And one of the things I often use in GS1 areas is that national identification is no option. The Finnish farm ID will not work. A Dutch farm ID will not work. There are a lot of countries thinking that it will work, but mangoes don't grow in Finland, and tomatoes are brought to Finland from the Netherlands, and we get dairy products from you. So be aware that it's not working. Good. As last thing, I was asked to give you a success story. And of course I do that with my own company, for instance with fruity crops. We are exporting in the Netherlands, I think, already 10 years, all our fruity crops with the GLN. Every farmer in the Netherlands who has a farm, has a glass house, has a GLN. And we're already on the level that we have a GLN for a row in a glass house. So we can connect all the data of that row upstream into the hierarchy of the GLNs together to where it comes from. And we export that to Germany, for instance, and also the global gap ID we use is not the global gap number 40 GANs, which is just the number of your certificate, but is connected to the location of the farm. And more of our certifications are connected to that. That's nice. But there is more. This is an example. You see it? Oh, I think he is on retirement over here. Yeah, there he is. We started with exporting pears to China. And then the Chinese say, hey guys, but if we have problems with one of your pears, there is a fly or something in that, be aware we close the Netherlands. Growers get 20-30% more a kilogram pears when they ship it to China. And they say, yeah, that cannot be possible. One of the other growers has a problem and I'm not allowed to ship anymore. So we started to identify every orchard in the Netherlands where we grow pears, also apples by the way, and blueberries, every, with the GLN. And the GLN is in the G10, of in the GLN registry of GS1. GS1 has 300 people in China, so that was not a huge discussion. They say the GS1, GLN, we know that in China. And now we are so far, after 5 years, that when there is an issue with pears to China, they close down one orchard. That's a huge effort for our industry, because pears to China are very interesting for our growers. And you see here how it's packhouse GLN, the cold store GLN, the grower GLN, they are all on the label. One identifier for all things which you can use for all those things. And here you see also here, because I was in your stores somewhere in Finland this weekend, you see also GLNs. When you go outside in the stores, you find on fresh produce GLNs. That's nothing new. It's European accepted. It's recognized by the EU Commission as a legal identifier of a source. So start using it. And this is one of mine, paprika. And you see what's very important, that it's then also connected to the registry of GS1. It's verified by GS1. Good. Thank you.